Good afternoon and welcome to Shawano News, your positive source in a crazy world. I'm your host, Jaime Lee. Today we celebrate the 400th Barn Quilt right here in the world's Barn Quilt capital, Shawano. I have the pleasure of speaking with Jim Leuenberger, the man influential in bringing the Barn Quilt project to Shawano County. Jim, thanks for having us in your workshop.
No problem.
We're here in the basement of the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
They've been nice enough to let you make these quilts all these years.
Right.
And now we're going to be celebrating the 400th Barn Quilt this weekend?
Yep.
Wow. Tell me, how did you come up with this idea to bring the Barn Quilts to Shawano?
Well, I had seen quilts. My wife and I had, liked to drive around and do day trips and all that. And we've been in a number of other states where we saw barn quilts, including southern Wisconsin. And so in June of 2010, I came home one day and I told Irene, I said, I think I'm going to try and get a barn quilt project started in Shawano County, because I knew that Shawano County was always a big dairy county. I mean, there are hundreds of dairy barns in this county. Most of them don't have cows in anymore, but have been kept up well and are being used for storage or what have you.
Where do you get the inspiration for all these designs?
You know, when we first started this, we found a book in the Shawano Library that had 5,000 quilt blocks in it. So we bought one of the books, and so a lot of the quilts, probably 250 of our patterns have come out of that book. But then I wanted to get some more different ideas, for quilt patterns, so I started looking on Pinterest and Googling barn quilt designs, if you will, and found just some really cool quilt patterns, and so that's where we got our
And
design.
sometimes, isn't it the barn owners that might have inspiration or something special to your heart that you can maybe incorporate?
Yep, we personalized some, like we put a silhouette of a deer head in some of them, just because they're deer hunters or whatever,
Right.
And we've had some people have gotten one for their 50th wedding anniversary, so there's a quilt pattern called double wedding rings, so we do that. We've done
I love that.
Yeah.
And as you can see, this is the 400th Barn Quilt exclusive access. Jim, tell us a little bit about the process of making this. It looks like it's pretty big.
It's big. We use two 4x8 sheets of 3/4 inch plywood, so when we put this up, it'll form an 8-foot square.
And if you can't make it, obviously, to the unveiling after the show airs, there is a booklet and a book that you can buy, and it has all the history. Jim was kind enough to put, is this the first 200?
There's 366 in here,
okay.
And then I'm going to do an addendum or whatever you want to call it to add the remaining 36 or whatever we have.
And the Chamber of Commerce is instrumental in bringing this to tourists all over the world. You've had people come from all over the nation.
Yep.
That's on their website, also in their visitor's guide, right?
Yes. Yeah, we have a pull-out map in the visitor guide, or the Chamber does each year when they do their visitor guide. Has a location of every quilt. This book has a map as well and has a color picture of every quilt. So it's really a nice resource. And the link on the Shawano website, I do an article for every quilt, and so the full article can be read on the Chamber website.
Well, I'm so proud of all the work you've done, all the volunteer hours. You've really made a difference. I know it's a collaborative effort with the whole city, people that have sponsored quilts,
Oh, yeah.
the Chamber of Commerce, 4-H, the newspaper who has done a story on every single quilt.
Yep.
So I guess before we go to the next spot, I want to do just my own little Shawano News. I'm going to paint a little on this white square so I can always say that I did a little painting on the quilt. Jim, thanks so much. I don't think you get enough credit. You're so kind and so creative. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Look who I bumped into, this week's sponsor, Judge J.R. Habeck, here at his homestead, the Habeck Farm. Thanks for having us out here, Judge.
Yeah, it's great to do that. We've had this barn here since 1905, but the Habecks have farmed here since 1928.
And tell us about your barn quilt.
This is called Patriotic Star. My dad, Roy Habeck, chose this back in 2011, so it's the 10th out of our 400 current barn quilts.
And you have more than one, don't you?
Yes, we have another farm in town of Herman that also has one.
Why was it important for you to sponsor some of these barn quilts? Why was it something that was really special for your family?
Well, we always wanted to keep track of our buildings and keep them up pretty well, and so since that's been done, I noticed my dad put new siding on, so he felt pretty proud about the fact that people were interested in coming to watch.
And like you said, people on the bikes, they'd come by, see the barn quilts, and your dad would stop and tell them the history of your family farm.
During the biking, Maddie Matheson organized that so that different people in the area would stop and the bikes, and they'd ask about the history, and they'd get told about that.
Well, thank you for sponsoring this episode and for all the honest work that you've done in our town, in the courtroom, and here on the farm. Thanks, Judge. Okay, now we're on the scene of putting up the barn quilt the day before the big show, again here with Jim. This is the 400th one, but you said there's a lot of barns left to go?
Oh my, we could put another 400 up in Shawano County. It's amazing how many barns there are.
And you said that you've never lost a barn quilt, that they've all stood the test of time through weather, wind, Shawano, winters.
Well, the last summer we did lose one. A tornado took the barn down.
Well,
it's pretty hard to prevent that.
Yeah.
But no, they've been holding up perfectly well. And
I have the pleasure of speaking with the owner of this beautiful farm and homestead, Stephen Krieger. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Good morning.
Where are you from?
I'm originally from western Shawano County, the Caroline area.
Okay. And did you always grow up on a farm?
Yes, I grew up on a dairy farm until I graduated high school, and then I was the last son, so the family farm got sold after that. I moved away, went to college, and moved to Illinois for work for quite a few years, but I always wanted to get back to my roots and have a place back up here, and so in 2014 I purchased this place off of Shawano Lake.
It's so beautiful. It's on 22 and Lakeview Drive where the big 400th barn quilt ceremony is going to be. How lucky that your land got chosen.
Total surprise to us as well. It was really cool. They stopped by one day and asked if we'd be interested in a barn quilt, which we always had been. And then they kind of sprung the surprise on us that it was going to be the 400th and that we were going to do a little celebration. And so we just kind of took it from there and made the best of it.
It's a big celebration. Oh my gosh, I get the chance to go into the bucket and go up and help put this thing. Oh, I'm too short. Okay.
Mr. Step inside.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And what's your name again, sir?
Leroy.
Leroy Redant. Him and his grandson have put together so many of these barn quilts. So it takes a team effort, a community effort. Let's go!
Verdant Electric, and Leroy Verdant is here. Where are you, Leroy? Right back there. Verdant Electric has put up all but one of our 400 quilts. And Leroy has been the primary, yes, thank you. Leroy has been the primary person or employee from Verdant Electric to put them up. He did have to take about 3 or 4 months off when he had shoulder surgery a while back, but we didn't have too many quilts to put up while he was gone, and I didn't want to put too many up while he was gone because he's the main guy. So thank you very much to Verdant Electric. I also want to thank Deerco Paint. They have provided the paint for these quilts at a nice reduction in price. The same with Torborg's lumber. They provided the plywood that we have for these quilts at a reduced price as well. So it's been really a very nice community effort as far as the project is concerned. I also want to thank, for this particular quilt, Charlie Harvey and his wife Debbie are here. They're sponsoring this 400 quilt. They are the owners of Charlie's County Market here in Shawano. And in fact, they're standing right over there, and they have actually sponsored 3 quilts. So this is the third one that they sponsored. And finally, before we unveil this beautiful 400th quilt, I would like to introduce Stephen Krieger and Mark Hebert, who own this place. And I stopped here, a few weeks ago, and Irene and I were driving around and looking at different barns and stuff, and I stopped here, and Stephen came to the door, and I introduced myself, and I said, would you be interested in getting a barn quilt? He said, I would love to have a barn quilt. And just look at this place. Isn't this a gorgeous place to have our 400th quilt? 3, 2, 1, unveil. Come on, baby. Pull it all the way off.
There it is.
Hey!
Don't forget about Bike the Barn Quilts last Saturday in September, where you can bike and see all these beautiful quilts, 16 to 70 miles of quilts. Beautiful weather. Let's go looking. This has truly been a heartwarming story to produce. I hope you were able to learn the full process of one man's dream and idea, bringing it here to Shawano, and with the help of the community and support of people here in Shawano, we were able to make this the barn quilt capital of the world. This is Jaime Lee signing off for Shawano News. Keep living and loving in the 54166.